God is talking. Subscribe.
You know, when you sent in this conversation with God as source material, we weren't quite sure what to expect, but let me tell you, this is no typical self-help book.
It really isn't. It jumps right into the big stuff, life's big questions.
Hmm.
And it's got this surprisingly playful tone given, like, the heavy concepts.
Yeah, right from the get-go, it's challenging this whole suffering is necessary thing. What do you make of that?
Bold move.
Right.
It flat out says suffering is a choice. It's not about the events, but how we react to them.
Okay, so it's not about dodging tough situations altogether, but like changing how we relate to those situations.
Exactly. Imagine,
Yeah.
instead of being like a victim, you choose how to face any challenge. It's saying even in the hard times, our experience of suffering, it's on us, our interpretation.
That's powerful, but lots of questions pop up too, like if we've got that much control, what about natural disasters? Or like freak accidents?
Now we're getting to the good part. The text even suggests those seemingly random things. They're influenced by, get this, fate, which is basically like the planet's collective consciousness.
Hold on. Are you saying our thoughts, like all of us together, can actually shape reality even on a global scale?
That's what this conversation wants us to think about.
Okay.
Remember when you were laser focused on something you wanted?
Yeah.
And then somehow it just kind of showed up in your life?
Yeah.
The text says maybe that's not a coincidence. It uses the example of, like, the environmental crisis. What if, and this is a big if, what if enough people's beliefs shifted about the planet? Could we actually turn things around?
Whoa. That is radical. And, it ties into another thing from the text, this idea that our definition of success, maybe we've got it wrong.
Totally. The text says true success,
Yeah.
it's not about money or like other people's approval. It's about evolving spiritually, becoming the best version of ourselves.
That hits home, really does. But how do you balance that with, well, reality? Got to pay the bills, got to take care of your people. Hard to focus on spiritual growth when you're worried about rent, right?
Right. And the text gets that. It doesn't ignore those very real concerns, but it offers a new way to look at it. It suggests that finding spiritual comfort, that inner peace, it can change how we view those pressures. It doesn't mean we stop caring about our families. No way.
Right.
But it shifts things inside us, our priorities.
Yeah.
So we approach those responsibilities, but from a stronger place, a more grounded place.
So instead of searching for fulfillment in, like, stuff or achievements, we cultivate this inner richness and it kind of flows into everything else.
Precisely. And guess what? The text says this shift, it can deeply impact our relationships too.
Oh, interesting. We always hear it, right? Relationships, it's about finding your other half, like someone else completes you. But this conversation with God throws that right out the window.
It really does. True fulfillment in relationships, it's not about someone else filling the gaps. It's about sharing our own completeness.
Yeah, it's like can't love someone else till you love yourself, right? But this text, it goes deeper than that, I think.
Absolutely. We're already whole, worthy of love, relationship or no relationship. And when that self-love is there, that's the foundation. That's how you build healthier, more fulfilling connections.
So how does that actually work in real life? Because we all have needs in relationships, right? Desires. Is it wrong to want those met?
It's not about denying those needs, not at all. More like shifting how we think about getting those needs met. What if, instead of expecting our partners to complete us, we focus on becoming more complete on our own?
And then bringing that to the relationship. Okay, I see how that could change things.
Exactly. You're not coming from this place of lack anymore or neediness.
Yeah.
It's abundance, self-sufficiency.
Not two halves, but two whole people choosing to be together.
Yes. And the text says this shift can lead to something much deeper, more authentic connection, because you're not relying on them. Not for your happiness, not for your worth.
It's like that part about choosing relationships on purpose, right? Being on the same page about what you're building together.
Consciously building, yeah. It's not about finding that perfect person, never is. It's about choosing someone who gets you, your values, someone who supports you growing, changing.
And will grow with you, too. Because let's be real, no relationship is perfect.
Right. Challenges happen.
Always.
And the text doesn't pretend otherwise.
Yeah.
Challenges are going to come, but they're opportunities.
It's like spiritual weightlifting, making us stronger, wiser in how we deal with ourselves and each other.
I like that. Instead of seeing arguments as threats, they're chances.
Understand each other better.
Yeah. And maybe, just maybe, those conflicts can actually bring you closer if you handle them right, with honesty, with really listening.
So it's about building that safe space
Right.
where you can both be vulnerable, speak your truth, even when it's hard, even when it's messy.
Beautifully said. Relationships, it's not about reaching some perfect state. It's about the journey, the learning, the growing together.
And laughing together, right? Because for all this serious stuff, this conversation with God, it's funny.
Oh, yeah. It's important, right? Not to take ourselves too seriously. Even with all these big questions, life, love, spirituality, there's got to be room for lightness, for joy.
Yeah, gotta find the humor even when things are tough.
It's all part of it, all part of this amazing journey.
Absolutely. And maybe that's another key to those tough relationships, finding a way to laugh together even when you want to cry. Speaking of tough, the text gets real about doubt too, right? Those fears that can creep up on any spiritual path.
Absolutely. Those moments when you question everything, even like, is God even there?
Yeah.
Totally natural, especially when times are hard.
When you pray for something,
Right.
nothing.
Right. The text has a different take on prayer, though. Maybe it's not about begging or trying to force the universe to do our bidding.
More about aligning ourselves
Uh-huh.
with the energy of what we want.
Exactly. Recognizing that power within us, we're co-creators.
Powerful stuff. But kind of hard to wrap your head around. If we're always co-creating, does that mean, like, when things go wrong, it's on us?
That's where free will comes in. The text is clear. We have the power to choose, to create, to learn. From every experience, the good and the bad.
So not about blaming ourselves for every little mistake, but
Come on.
taking responsibility, right? And learning to make better choices next time.
Exactly. And that brings us back to no obligations. If we're truly free to choose, relationships become choices too, not obligations.
We can choose to stay, choose to leave, choose to show up fully, or hold back.
Right. And the text suggests that when we see relationships like this, from this place of freedom, of responsibility, that's where the real connection is. That's where the growth happens.
It's a balancing act, though, isn't it? Honoring your own needs, but still showing up for them. How do we find that balance?
That's where this conversation with God gets really interesting, I think. It's about understanding this difference, soul work versus God work.
So we left off with this whole soul work versus God work thing. What's that all about, and how does it connect to relationships?
It's subtle, but man, it's powerful. Think of it like this. Soul work, that's the stuff we do on the inside. Healing our own wounds, figuring out our patterns, becoming more aware, more compassionate people. It's taking ownership of our own growth.
Okay. And God work.
God work is taking that light, that growth, and sharing it. Not about preaching or converting anyone, but living your truth so genuinely that it inspires others.
So it's like our own transformation, it becomes a guide for others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The text says when we're focused on our own soul work, when we're committed to growing, to healing, we start radiating something different, a different energy.
And that affects our relationships.
Big time. Because that energy, that's authenticity.
It's power.
Because we're not looking for someone to fix us anymore.
Yeah.
We're just being our whole selves. Yes. And that's where the real change happens. In us and in our relationships. When we meet each other as whole people, that's when you get that deep connection, the compassion, the real love.
Which takes us back to that no obligations idea. If we're not supposed to fix each other, complete each other, what are we even doing in relationships?
The text says we're here to learn from each other, to support each other's journeys, and to create experiences together. Experiences that help us grow into our best selves.
And sometimes that means saying goodbye, right? Some relationships, they aren't meant to last forever.
That's true, and the text doesn't shy away from that. Letting go, sometimes it's just as important as holding on. Sometimes the most loving thing for both of you is to give each other space to grow, even if it means growing apart.
Recognizing that every relationship, short or long, it has something to teach us.
Every encounter, every connection, it has the potential to change us. If we keep our hearts open and stay open to learning.
This whole conversation, it's a good reminder. Relationships, it's not about some fairy tale ending. It's about the journey, the messy, beautiful journey. And we're not alone in that, not at all.
Right, we've got this wellspring of strength, of wisdom, always there, guiding us toward what's best for us.
It's about trusting our gut, honoring what we need, what our boundaries are, and showing up as ourselves, even when it's scary.
And never, ever underestimating love, the power it has to change everything.
Well said. This deep dive into God, wow, it's made us think, for sure, challenged what we thought we knew, opened our minds, and honestly, it's given us a lot of hope.
It reminds us that the answers, they're not in some book, some dogma. They're in here, in our own hearts, in our experiences, and in having the guts to seek truth, love, connection.
So we'll leave you with this. It's from the text. If you truly had no obligations, only opportunities in your relationships, think about that for a minute. What would you create? How would you show up differently? Let that question guide you as you navigate your own relationships and as you travel this crazy, amazing road we call life. Until next time, keep asking the big questions. Keep listening to that inner voice and keep diving deep.
See you next time.
爱在哪一处上来，相爱的值得。